All right, guys. This is episode number 144. 144. So I go back to work. I'm a teacher. I teach third grade. I go back to work on Monday, and then kids come back the following Monday. I'm going to take you back. I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to take you back to 1984. So first issue of Beckett came out in November of 1984. So I'm going to take you back. So my mom was about 5 months pregnant when the first Beckett came out. So this is my mom. Right there. That's my mom. And this is my dad. It was complicated. But I'm going to take you back. So I found it really fascinating. So I looked through this Beckett last week, and I was fascinated by some of the prices. And it made me think, back in 1984, would you rather have 25 of the top cards for $5,000? If you were an expecting parent, you're like, I'm going to really invest in my kids. What do you think would be better? 25 vintage cards. These are Beckett prices according to Beckett. I chose $5,000 worth of Beckett cards. Or do you think $5,000 invested with a 10.8 yearly return? What do you think would be better investment right now? So that's the question that I would pose to you. If you were to think about it right now, what do you think would have been the best investment? Let's start with this first. So back in 1984, there wasn't PSA, there wasn't grading. So if you were to go to card shop and you were to pick up these cards, you'd pay pretty close to the Beckett price. So let's pretend the card shop has a Beckett. Condition, obviously, if you were to look at 3 cards, you pick the better condition, but it didn't really make a huge difference. So when I took the Beckett prices, I just went for the high number, the mint price. And for this, I'm just looking at 30-year trend data of looking at stock market, and typically for the yearly increase, about 10.8%. So which one, first instincts, would you rather have? Now I can tell you, if you chose this, so in 1984, if you put in $5,000, if you were to multiply it, if you were to add 10.8%, you'd get about $5,540. That's really good. If you were to multiply this all the way to 2021, you would have $222,000. And you ask yourself, would these 25 cards, and let's pretend they're in really good condition, and I'm also going to say that you graded them and you sold them within the last 2 months. So do you think that's enough money, or do you think you're still going to go with these? What's really interesting about compound interest and Roth IRAs, if you were to continue this number 1 more year, I have the numbers here, or 5 more years, this would be at $335,000. So if you were to wait until 2025, 2030, you'd be about $500,000. You'd cross that $1 million mark in about 10 years. This is crazy. In 2050, the compound interest, it multiplies so much towards the end if you put money towards retirement. In 2050, it'd be $4.3 million. So if you haven't done a Roth IRA, if you haven't done investment, definitely worth looking into, because you can turn $5,000 in 1985 into $4.3 million in 2050 if you were to put the money in. But as of right now, if you were to invest the money in 1985 and pull it out, or look at your bank total or Roth IRA total, it would be $222,000. Let's check in with some of these cards. So this card right here is a Yogi Berra 1948 Bowman. This book's in the Beckett, in the first issue of Beckett, for $40. This one sold for $11,000. This 1948 Bowman Stan Musial, this booked at $65,000, sold for $15,000. Satchel Paige, it actually listed for $350,000, so even in 1984, Satchel Paige cards were really high, even more than Jackie Robinson, which surprised me. Satchel Paige cards were really high. So the rookie of Satchel Paige, about $10,000. Jackie Robinson, this card was $60 raw back in 1984 Beckett, and it is now $18,900. 1950 Bowman, this listed at $55 in the Beckett, sold for $32,000. And you notice some of those are PWCC, which is no longer with us. We lost them yesterday. Say a little moment of silence here. I'm over it. Okay, 1951 Bowman Mickey Mantle, $375. They're actually $375 in the Beckett in 1984. Mickey Mantles were definitely higher, but not as high as they are now. $71,000. A Willie Mays rookie, 1951 Bowman. This booked for $325. In this condition at a PSA 6, it sold for $18,000. It's interesting looking at all these PWCC auctions now. I wonder who's gonna sell these. This card, this 1952 Bowman, we'll get in some Topps cards shortly. This was books for $200 in that Beckett in 1984, November. Those are the book prices. Again, I wasn't grading back then, so I'm gonna assume that for the price that we have on there, that's what you bought this for, trying to invest your money. Love this card. I love the background, that's awesome. So Jackie Robinson, $300 in 1952 Topps. In 1984, that's what they sold for. Sold for $21,000 on eBay. Oh, here's a non-PWCC. Oh, that's good. 1952 Topps. This is a PSA 4. Raw, 1,400 even back in 1984. This card sold for $84,000. 52 Topps, booked for $300 in the Beckett, $15,000 recently. 53 Topps, booked for $400, sold for $11,500. 53 Topps Mickey Mantle, booked for $225 back when my mom was pregnant, now at $24,000. It's probably my least favorite Jackie Robinson, the ones I have, because it doesn't really look like him. I don't see him in this painting. This was a $50 card. Jackie Robinsons are a lot more than they were back in '84. After they retired his number and more books and more learning about Jackie Robinson and his journey into the majors, they've definitely gone up more. This one is $13,000. Hank Aaron, this was $150, now $52,000. So these are, if you were to buy all these raw back in 1984, it'd be $5,000. I added them all up, and it was super duper close to $5,000. This card was $95 back in 1984. And I'd love to hear, I bet there's people that are watching this video that are thinking, yeah, those were the prices, and I didn't buy them. $21,000 for a PSA 7. Sandy Koufax, one of my favorite vintage cards. $50 back in 1984, now almost $40,000. $80 for this 56 Topps Mantle in a PSA 8.5, sold for $20. $36 for a 1957 Hank Aaron, probably my least favorite 50s Topps set. $36 it booked at, not $35, not $40, $36 it booked at. $22,877. Carl Yastrzemski, okay, $75. Now $22,000. Lou Brock, $24, not $20, not $25, $24. It priced in the Beckett 4, sold for $14,544. Pete Rose, this is the PSA 9, raw in '84. $350 was the price that Beckett chose. $77,000. This is probably the biggest jump This is a $10 card in the Beckett in the mint category, and this might have been, assuming it was like a 7 or 8 condition, I don't know exactly. This sold for $15,000. It says pop 1 of 11, none graded higher. Another huge jump, this is a $3 card in 1984, 18,500. Pop 1 of 6 according to this subtitle. And the last one, another big jump, a $5 card. So this is 4 years into his rookie or his major league career, maybe 25, 26, 27. 76,000 for this, and it was a $5 card in the Beckett. So if you're wondering how much all of those 25 cards added up to, $754,000. So if you invested $5,000 in these 25 cards, got them graded, let's say the $15 plus there's some probably upcharges with some of those. Let's say you spent $2,000 getting graded, maybe a $7,000 investment turned into this. But if you were to ask me, if you were to take this money, instead of putting it into cards at this point, I would put it right into some kind of stock investment. Because you can take 222, for example, and turn it into $4.3 million. What is that? In 30 years? I don't know if those cards that I just showed you would get to that $4.3 million in 30 years. Maybe. I don't know. I think this is kind of a common question that almost everybody has had. If I could go back in time, what cards would I buy? I don't know. I was surprised by a couple of the 70s and early 80s cards that were so low. But there's so very few of them in good condition. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Happy collecting and investing.